Diary of a Wimpy Noob, a hyper guy who fulfills his dreams. Kids Adventure Stories. Written by Jeff Child. Narrated by John H. Feskins. Introduction. This diary belongs to Noob, a fast, thorough guy who thought he was weird. Other kids in class called him names, and even when he defeated a blowfish that was attacking the city, nobody respected him. Harsh. He wasn't sure if there was something wrong with him, if his brain was messed up, but when he found his gifts, he realized that there was a reason for the fact that he was bouncing up and down all day. Listen about the courageous Noob, who defeated a threatening enemy but didn't get the praise he deserved, and then took his personality and turned it into a success story. Chapter 1. Blowfish. Whoa! He missed. The blowfish missed. I was lucky. Usually they are pretty accurate. But this time I was the smarter one. I had already been hiding behind those pillars for a few minutes, and when I popped out my head, it was a close call. Now he was going around the corner, trying to spot me and attack another time. He was, I am assuming it was a male, didn't care. He just wanted me out of his territory. But what I was doing was important. It was crucial for the setup of my business, but more about that later. I was fighting with a blowfish. Can you believe it? A blowfish! I thought those didn't exist in this area, but apparently there was at least one left in this vast ocean. The reason for my appearance here? I had heard of the treasures in this monument underneath the sea surface, and now I was attempting to dig them up. But this creature wouldn't let me. He was chasing me everywhere. So here I was, swimming around with a mask and in swimming shorts, feeling very, unprotected. I had no weapon, not even a clue what to do against those awful monsters, and the blowfish wouldn't give up either. He would follow me everywhere, staring at me and attacking several times, swinging his short tentacles at me. I was startled at first, but after some time I realized what his trick was. The blowfish was used to certain routines, to habits and paths. They followed a route from chamber to chamber. The ruins through which we were swimming only gave way to the sizes of particular creatures, and I knew this smart little bugger was trying to trap me. But I wouldn't let that happen. No way. I stayed out of the narrow spaces. Bang! The blowfish bashed his head against the wall, but only because I was quick enough to evade his attack. I couldn't talk since I was swimming deep beneath the surface, but in my mind I was sick of it, and I said, "That's it, you stupid blowfish! I am going to bring you down!" I swam and swam until I came to an area in the building that was unstable. I saw a large boulder leaning on a small piece of brick, ready to fall with the slightest movement of the current. I went towards it, waited until the blowfish attacked again, and quickly swam into the other direction. The blowfish hit the boulder with his head and sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Funny. I actually expected the boulder to fall down, but this worked too, I guessed. Either way, this weird creature was not going to bother me anymore. Now I had all the time in the world to investigate the ancient ruins. I swam inside with my flashlight. I had heard of mysterious treasure that could locate resources in the soil of our lands, but they had been hidden and put away by the owners, who thought that nobody should have that much power in their hands. The magical object was supposed to be in these ruins. I looked and looked. I found nothing at first. But when I entered a room with engravings on the walls and strange symbols on the floor, I couldn't help but notice a shiny object in the distance. It was a pickaxe made out of diamonds. It looked amazing, especially with my flashlight reflecting the smooth surface of the pickaxe. It was truly a remarkable object, which I noticed right away when I swam closer. I put it in my pocket and took off, back to the boat that was floating on the water. When I reached the boat, I took off my mask and climbed in. I pulled the pickaxe out of my pocket and looked at it again. If this thing could really bring to pass the wonders I had been hearing about, then I was a lucky man as of now. I rowed back to the coast and tied up my boat to a dock. When I was done, there was a crowd of people watching some preacher give a sermon. He talked about religion, politics, and about the monsters of the sea that had been terrorizing fishermen. "We have to do something," he said. "We cannot allow these monsters to stop us anymore. We need to catch enough fish to get the business in this town going. What else could we do? The farmlands provide only a scantily meal to the average commoner. We do not have many visitors, and resources are scarce in this region. But the monsters are invincible. We cannot harm them. What are we to do? I will tell you what we have to do. We have to pray. That's the only way we can escape this madness." I was listening to this guy going on and on about the impossibilities of the fisherman's trade, but some of the things he said weren't true, so I felt like I had to speak up. "I just defeated a blowfish," I said. Everybody turned around. They were staring at me with big eyes. And although I was fairly proud of myself for beating that evil monster, I still had that little awkward way of talking to people, especially when I got a little nervous. So I talked fast, and most people didn't really understand what I was saying. "Well, I was in the ocean, and I was looking for... never mind that. When this big creature with small tentacles came at me and tried to kill me and eat me and destroy me, but you know me. I evaded his attacks and I went to the other side, but then he came at me again and I had to swim away, and the boulder didn't crash on him, but he still bumped his head, and I just knew that I was victorious because I got rid of him and I never saw him after that." Everyone still looked at me with big eyes. What?" one of the civilians quietly said. So I started again. "It just happened when I was in the ocean that a blowfish attacked me, but he couldn't hurt me because I was too fast. So I knew when to swim away and not have him drive me into a corner so I would be trapped and—" "No, wait a minute," the man said, interrupting me. "I heard what you said. I am not deaf, but—" "What? You defeated a blowfish?" "Yes, that's what I said." All the people around me were laughing. I could see that they didn't believe me. They thought I was weird enough with the way I was telling the story. "Where is your proof?" a woman asked. But before I could answer, other people were firing away questions at me. "Then why didn't you take the body?" another said. "How come you can defeat those lethal monsters and none of us can?" a guy asked. "And why do you talk so funny?" a little girl asked. I was shaking. I was nervous. I was hyper. I didn't like being ridiculed, but I didn't have an answer to their questions, so I just left. They kept laughing as I turned around the corner of a nearby house and put fingers in my ears so I didn't have to listen to their belittling comments. Someday they would see that, no matter how weird I was, I could make something happen. Chapter 2. Hyperactive. I had always been hyperactive, even when I was little. I don't know why, but I just had too much energy in me. I would bounce up and down on the bed, run back and forth through the living room, and drive my mother crazy with my endless stories that were more like random rambling races against time. I had this thing with getting as much information into as little time as possible when I was saying something. "Did you feed the chickens?" my mother asked me one time. "Yes, Mom. I went outside and took the chicken food, but when I saw the chickens, they were all in their coops and they didn't want to come out. So I took a pan and a spoon and started banging on it. Bang, 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 bang. And then they got scared because they didn't see it coming, since it startled them, and when they came out, I gave them the food, and after a while they ate it and they liked it, so that's what happened when I tried to feed them." "Thank you, Noob. Glad you told me." My mom was so patient. On another occasion, there were guests. I was super excited, but I didn't control myself very well. We had a slightly small toy car on which my younger sister could sit. An adult could carefully push her and drive her around as long as she would hold on to the wheel. I loved my little sister, but being careful was not a word you would often hear me use. I liked adventure and action and anything that wasn't boring, like all those boring things you have to do for school. So here I was, and my sister asked me to push her around. There were about 20 people in our living room. They stood there and chatted about life and homes and finances and all that grown-up stuff. I didn't care, though. I was going to show my sister the time of her life. I asked her if she was ready. "I am ready," she said excitedly, bouncing with her bum on the little car seat. "Then let's go," I said. I pushed her hard. It went way fast. I didn't put much thought into what I was doing. I zigzagged through and around the legs of all the grown-ups, while my sister was happily screaming and making car sounds. Left, right, through the legs, left again. It went so fast that my mom came after me and tried to stop me, but it was too late. We were being stopped by the forces of nature. Not paying attention to one of the distinguished gentlemen who was one of my dad's associates, I tripped over the man's foot and landed on the floor. I held onto the little car and tipped my sister, who flew 5 feet high into the air and with her head into the wall. "Ouch! Noob, what did you do?" "I am sorry, I was just playing, but we went super fast and then we went around the woman's legs and through the legs of the man in the suit, and before we knew it, we were going like race cars and then—" "Go to your room this instant," my mom said. "Okay." Yes, I was hyper. I talked too fast and I moved too fast. It must have been hard to deal with me as a kid. Chapter 3. Irritating. I am going to reflect on one more story from my childhood. It's not a happy one, but it was part of who I had become later in life. It was at school. Of course it was. It just had to happen at school. A lot of kids didn't like me anyway, since I was always talking their ears off and couldn't control all my hyperactive energy. But this time it was worse than ever. I just couldn't stay focused. There were so many distractions. "You have ADHD, a girl told me at school. What? I asked, but she was already gone. Anyway, there was a play at school. I was the donkey, and the hero and the princess roles were given to the most popular kids in class. Go figure. Some children were chosen to be trees, and others were servants in the king's castle. I don't even really remember what the main point was, what the play was all about. All I remember is that I didn't like the story, and that it was super hard to concentrate. The play started. "Where art thou, O torturer of my soul? Give me thy afflictions, and I shall face thee with courage," the kid who played the prince said. They already lost me at the word thou. All that old English was driving me nuts. So I spaced out. I stared at the 100-plus parents who were proudly watching their children make a fool out of themselves. There were fat parents, skinny ones, some that looked rich, others with huge families and crying babies, and some that looked like the Grim Reaper. But looking at all these adults became boring too quickly. There was too much happening. I wandered off. I had a donkey suit, but now I was checking out the lights behind the stage. "Psst, Noob, come back here," the teacher said. I didn't listen. I was too busy observing the lights and trying them out. Then I was distracted by the song they were singing. I knew that song. So I stood up and looked. It was like a sensory overload. The singing, the spectators, the costumes, the lights, the pressure, the stage. There was so much to see, feel, listen to, and do. Most people didn't pay attention to me when I was walking around between the children, going to the piano and playing a few notes just for fun. Then hopping back on the stage again and feeling the surface of the floor. After that, I checked out one of the parents who was eating out of his nose. Yuck! Why would he shamelessly do that in public? Disgusting. Oh well. Hey, what was that over there? I saw a thick rope hanging next to the curtains. It looked cool. I wanted to pull it. The teacher saw it coming. She already knew I couldn't focus on one thing at a time. Seeing my eyes wandering, she had observed every move and had just calmly let it go, but now she was concerned. "No, Noob, don't pull the—" That was it. I didn't care. I just wanted to know what would happen if I would pull the rope down. It was hanging there so peacefully that it had sparked my curiosity. I pulled. Thud! Apparently, the rope was attached to the curtain. Well, I actually already concluded that from looking at it, but I didn't know that it would make the entire curtain drop on the stage. My mouth fell open. I had interrupted the play. I had destroyed everything. What did I do? Ah! Some children screamed. Wah! Others cried. They were all covered by the thick red curtain that was now detached from the ceiling. Kids were struggling and moving underneath it, trying to find their way back to a space that would provide them with some oxygen. I'm choking, one of the boys yelled from underneath the curtain. Of course he was exaggerating, but it just added to the drama. Get those children out of there, one of the parents shouted as he stood up. Now all the parents were standing up and walking towards the stage. Some of them had already climbed up there and were pulling children out of the covering curtain. Girls were crying, boys were fighting, fathers were accusing teachers, mothers were panicking, and the piano guy was so startled that he played a few wrong notes before passing out on his stool. It was chaos. Total chaos. When all the children had safely ended up in the arms of a caring parent or teacher, the curtain lay flat on the floor. Everybody stopped talking and looked at me. No one said anything, but I still remember the expression of their faces and the hate in their eyes. I had failed them. My hyperactive, unfocused tendencies had become their annoyance. They were all angry at me. All I wanted to do was hide under a rock. I was speechless. I am just glad that I didn't try to explain what happened. The slur of words that would have come out of my mouth would have made it worse anyway. Still, it was an awful moment I would never forget. How was I ever going to deal with my lack of concentration and my excess of energy? At the time, I had no idea. Chapter 4. I Am Out of Here. Back to what happened recently. I was an adult. I had just defeated the blowfish, but since there were no witnesses, I didn't get any recognition for it. But I knew that those creatures could be slain, despite of the crazy words of that old preacher. All of this was beside the point, however, because here I was picking up fish and throwing them on different piles. That's right, I worked at the docks. There were no other jobs. I wasn't even a fisherman. I was a fisherman's assistant. Can you hear the pathetic tone in my underappreciated profession? I didn't even have the status of perfecting a trait. I had to assist those who did, and not only that, but the trait wasn't that impressive in the first place. Going out, catching fish, and then organizing them into piles wasn't what I was hoping to do for the rest of my life. Even if I would get a raise or become some expert at it or something, it still would be tedious. It was awfully boring. I hated my job, but there was nothing else. At least that was something the preacher was right about. The town's economy was based on fish. No fish meant no money. It was not that I hated fish. I loved the taste of it, but hauling them in each day and then going through the healthy ones, the small ones, the big ones, and the ones we didn't want to sell, and that's after going through all the big cobweb of green, yucky seaweed, could you see that I wanted to do something else? So one day, I just quit. I told them I was done. I put the fish down and said, I am finished. My employer came to me and said, Finished? You aren't finished? Look, there is a whole pile you haven't done yet. No, I am finished, I insisted. What? You're finished for the day? If you're leaving, then you can kiss that monthly bonus goodbye. I am not finished for the day. I am finished with the job, I said. You're quitting? Well, good luck finding another job in this town, he chuckled. I knew he was right. There was nothing here. But for some reason, I just knew I would go crazy if I would do this for another day. I wasn't meant to perform tedious tasks. I wasn't meant to go through a routine. I like variety and newness. But I didn't know what to do. I had always been dreaming of starting my own company. I wanted to be in charge of the way things went. I wanted to get paid for results, meeting goals, challenges, that sort of thing. Not just for how many hours I was there. That was different. Now I was left on my own. But I had a plan. I was going to find out every little trick I could do with that diamond pickaxe I had found. I went home and got it. I looked at it. What was I supposed to do with this thing? Perhaps just dig into the ground or into the mountain and see what would happen. After a quick lunch, that's what I decided to do. I took my backpack and headed towards the mountains. Chapter 5. Oil. I was anxious to find out what I could bump into with this newly acquired item from the bottom of the ocean. I was walked on the plains in the direction of the mountain range far behind it. The plains were dry. They consisted of rocky and sandy grounds with only the wind to accompany you. It was a long trip. The mountains looked so close, but in reality it would take hours to walk over there. I became restless. I was too eager to know what I could do with this pickaxe. I couldn't take it anymore, so I pulled it out of my backpack and swung it high up in the air, only to have it land on the ground within a second or two. The ground burst a little. There was nothing. It was all dry. I tried again. Maybe something would happen. I didn't know what I was expecting, but I was just hoping for a miracle. I tried again, and again, and again. I tried about 50 times, but nothing special happened. I was about to give up. I had counted to 50, so this would be the 51st time I would thrust in my pickaxe. Sure, one more time, I mumbled. The pickaxe cut into the soil. Beep, beep, beep. What was that? As if some kind of alarm went off inside the tool I was using. Did it mean something? Did I find something? I didn't see anything in the ground, so what was that all about? Well, let's try it again, I said. I hit the ground one more time. Again. Beep, beep, beep. There must be something here, I assumed. I did it one more time, and before I knew it, a black liquid was gushing out like a fountain. I was covered in it. Yuck. Disgusting stuff, like mud or something. I smelled it. Then I tasted it. It wasn't mud. It was oil. Oil? In this region, near our village? My mouth was wide open. I was astonished. This was awesome. Oil was something everybody needed. It had been used as a fuel for years for so many things. I could make a ton of money with this discovery, but I couldn't tell anyone about it. Not yet. I had to be smart. I had to play it right. Chapter 6. Success. This was amazing. If this pickaxe would beep every time I would be near some oil, I would only have to use it every once in a while to find another area, and then I would be able to reap the benefits. I went home and washed myself. Then I took 2 small pieces of diamond that I picked off the pickaxe and put them in my pocket. It was okay, I thought. There was plenty of it. I hid the pickaxe and went to some city building that takes care of property and real estate. I entered the room. I want to purchase some land, I said without beating around the bush. Sure, what would you like to buy? The guy behind the desk asked. This, I said when pointing at the map. I'm sorry, what? I want to buy that piece of land. He looked at what I was pointing at. Then he looked at me as if I was crazy. Sir, it's a desert. Why on earth would you ever want to buy that? I have my reasons, I said. How much does it cost? He laughed. Sir, the price isn't too steep. You are probably buying the cheapest piece of land in the county. Actually, I have to check with my superior if it would cost anything at all. They might just be happy that someone will be held accountable to take care of it. You're talking about miles and miles of desert land here. Nobody cares about it. Well, I do, I said. Okay, let me ask my boss, he said. After a while, he came back from the other room he had been in and said, It will cost you a little. How much do you have? I showed him the 2 diamonds. He looked at them in amazement. Yes, that will be more than enough, he said. Just sign the papers and it's all yours. I signed and kept my copy of the contract. Then I went to a few guys at the docks who were organizing fish. I walked up towards them and said, I will pay you double of what you earn now if you start working for me. They smiled and happily accepted my offer. My former employer didn't care either, since there were so many unemployed people in town that he could easily find some replacements. After I had gathered a group of people, I led them to the desert and ordered them to start digging. It became a success within no time. Chapter 7. Filthy Rich. This was what I loved to do. I was managing personnel, taking risks, finding new resources, and making money. After investing in materials, I scaled everything up, discovered new places with oil, and hired new people. My company became bigger than the fish industry within a few months. People from all over the country came to buy my oil. Big reserves were hiding away all the resources and fuels they were interested in. I was proud of myself, but I hadn't invited my parents yet. My parents lived on the other side of the country. They were so busy that it had been hard for them to visit me in all that time. I was hoping they would be able to come soon. If they wouldn't, I would just take a break and visit them. "Say, boss," an employee said as he entered my office, "here are the stats of the last payments." I looked at it and couldn't believe my eyes. Our company had surpassed $1 million in revenue. I was a millionaire. Who would have ever thought that the little boy who pulled down the red curtain on the stage would be someone respectable, someone people would look up to? Dozens of people were now employed by me. My company was the biggest in town and gave the local economy an enormous boost. But still, something was missing. I still wanted to prove myself. Chapter 8. Still hyperactive. I still wanted to prove that the fishing industry could do better too. People were still too afraid to go fishing at certain times of the day. There were still poor people working for low wages. I wanted to improve the quality of living in our village, but fear was holding its citizens back. What was I going to do? Then I got an idea. The blowfish. That was it. That's how it all started. If I could only show them that the creatures from the deep could be killed, people would gain more confidence and would be willing to go fishing more often and in better areas. I was determined. Now that I was rich and financially free, I wanted to give something back. Of course, I didn't like some people in particular, but I didn't want to hold a grudge. I wanted to help, despite their demeaning comments when I was younger. I bought a harpoon at a small shop, put on my diving mask, and took the rowboat that was still tied up to the dock. When I was at the place I assumed the ruins would be, I took my chances and dove into the water. I went down and down, deeper and deeper. The ruins were in sight. I came closer and saw all the places I had been before, and then I saw it. It was the same blowfish from so long ago. He was back. He hadn't died. But this time, I was going to take care of it. He saw me and stared at me for a few seconds. Then the ugly creature didn't hesitate any longer and came straight at me. Whoosh! He missed, but he was turning around for another dash. I was ready. I held my harpoon in front of me. "Come and get me, punk," I thought. The monstrous guardian sped at me and swam right into my harpoon. He was impaled and dead. Finally, I was able to swim through these waters without feeling like something wanted to kill me all the time. I didn't feel like searching for more treasure in the ruins. I was rich anyway. I didn't do this for the money. I just wanted to show everyone that the ocean was safe enough, that there was a way to deal with these dangerous monsters. I swam back and rowed to the shore. Again, I tied my boat to the dock and went to the place where the preacher was doing his thing again. "We cannot go fishing between 4 and 8, he said. "We cannot go fishing at night. We have to be consistent. It's dangerous out there. Monstrous invisible creatures are roaming in this vast ocean." I laughed. Finally, I could silence this man with all his superstitious nonsense. I dragged the blowfish behind me and put it in front of me. A couple of people looked at it and were in shock. "Here is your invincible creature," I shouted. Everybody looked at me again, but this time they didn't laugh. They didn't talk back to me. The dead blowfish, pierced by my harpoon, was enough evidence that it was true. They could go fishing any time, as long as they had something to defend themselves. The preacher was speechless. He became silent and retreated to his quarters. People came at me and started asking me all kinds of questions. They wanted to know how I did it, where I found it, and, most of all, if this meant they could go out to fish more often. You can go fishing any time you want, I assured them. And if any of you are really without a job, you can come work for me. We'll squeeze you into our company roster. But now that you know the truth, you may not have to anymore. My speech was controlled. I didn't blurt out all kinds of nonsensical details anymore. But a certain someone threw me back into my childhood patterns. "Good day, son," I heard a voice from the back of the crowd say. "Dad?" My mom was there too, and it all came back to me. I felt comfortable with them, so I just couldn't help myself. "Mom, Dad, I just went to the ocean and I said, 'Wow!' and the blowfish came at me, but I was too fast. And then he attacked, but I avoided him and I just started a new company and I'm already a millionaire and the town is doing so much better. So now that I am financially free, I just wanted to show the civilians here how safe the ocean is by killing the blowfish, and I did. I did! It was super scary, but I did it. And now they aren't afraid to go into the water anymore, so everything is okay and I am happy to see you." "We love you too, son," my mom said. "We are very proud of you." It was a happy day. The end.